We're looking at the Section 2 practice problems here for analyzing categorical data, and the answers to categorical and quantitative questions. You're going to use your notes from previous video to go ahead and figure that out on your own. So I'm leaving you on your own with that one. We're going to jump down here to number 3 and do this quick example. It says, at a large company in Minnesota, a group wanted to know which NFC North pro football teams that their coworkers liked the most. They sent a survey to a random sample of employees and received the results below from 150 people. Find the relative frequency, draw a bar graph, and draw a pie graph. Lots of things going on in this. We're going to take this one step at a time. The first thing that we want to do once we take a second to understand what it's even talking about is we want to figure out what relative frequency is and see if we can fill that in. Now, this study, if we look through it, they want to know which NFC North pro football teams their coworkers like the most. And so the options they gave them are all the NFC North teams: the Vikings, Packers, Bears, and Lions. Once you realize what it's talking about, the frequency is going to be how many people responded to that survey with that particular answer. So given that it's in Minnesota, it makes sense there's a lot of Vikings fans there that show up under frequency, over 100. And given that the Packers are awesome, obviously, it seems that 34 is a very strong standing there. So lots of people said that, and then a few other people said some of the other teams. Now, to figure out the relative frequency, you're going to need to do a little bit of calculation. So the frequency of 102 is out of the total of 150 people. So you're going to take that 102 and divide it by 150. And if you actually left it as a fraction like that, that would technically be a correct answer. So there's nothing wrong with doing that. It sometimes is more helpful, especially when you get to your pie chart, if you do make it a percent though. So if you type that in your calculator and divide it, you'll get 0.68, which is 68%. So you've got 68%, 102 out of 150. The rest of these follow the same way, 34 out of 150, and then type that in your calculator to go ahead and get a percentage, and you end up with 0.23 if you round it off, so 23%, and so forth. Now, when you're making a bar graph of all of this information, you can choose whether to use the frequency or relative frequency. The graph will look the same. You'll just label it differently. But usually you want to start out with this kind of L shape, this base to get you started, and on the bottom you're going to want to write your teams. So since we're just doing a sketch, we're not doing this real fancy here, we can go ahead and take some shortcuts. So Vikings, Packers, Bears, Lions, and we're going to go ahead and graph these numbers. Now I want to choose a scale so that everything fits. So if I have 100 people, then halfway is going to be 50. 3/4 of the way is going to be 75, and 25, and so forth. So this is how many people responded a certain way. Now for the Vikings, it goes all the way up to a little over 100. So that bar is right there. For the Packers, it goes up to 34. And then just kind of stops there. Again, we could label this with percent, 68%, 23%, and so forth, and that would effectively look the same. So your job is to go ahead and finish those last two along with the problem below. Now with the pie chart, the relative frequency being a percentage really helps. So all pie charts start out as this big circle. It's a pie to be divided up. And since there's 360 degrees in a circle, you'd want to split it up based on the percentage you have. So the percentage Vikings is 68%, which is just over 2/3. So if we were to give that all to the Vikings, that would be that big slice. And then 34 out of 150 was 23%, so almost a fourth. So you take something like that, and that's going to be your Packer list. And then for your remaining ones, that will be based on how big they are. So you'll have to figure out how big those last two slices are based on the Bears and the Lions and their relative fan base in Minnesota. And that's the rest of the practice is all up to you. So if you can go ahead and finish that bar graph right here, finish the pie chart in that last little corner right there, and you are all good to go.